So, early in the play, as Lady Macbeth begins to plan the murder of Duncan, she begins to resemble the power of influence rather than action as displayed by the witches, therefore using Macbeth as her own hands and following through with her goals. As the witch's prophecy is the lone drive toward the entire action of the play, it wouldn't occur without them telling Macbeth what to do. Macbeth would never have turned to murder without supposing his need to be a king. Lady Macbeth describes her setting the scene of the murder to occur. So rather than enacting it, she just plans it out. As she drugs Duncan's pendants, Shakespeare invokes a supernatural power through her description, with the shriek of the owl and the image of them drinking this draught, which can appear almost potion-like. It harkens back to the images of witches and their familiars and the bubbling brew from the witch's cauldron. As the witches have overfed Macbeth with information and mock his overconfidence in himself, as Beckett uses this to finally bring about his undoing, Lady Macbeth calls these characters surfeited with this draught that she gives them, and then seems to laugh as they mock their charges. So they mock their charges and she mocks them. For she knows more than they do. She has an almost supernatural power over everyone in the play because she is the one planning it out. Furthermore, the witches and Hecate use both catalytic trochaic tetrameter and iambic tetrameter in their meter of their chants and phrases. And though Lady Macbeth begins with using iambic pentameter in the speech, she begins to break through this normalized pattern, adding hanging lines to this feminine line and making it almost seem like prose, for it breaks so much with this iambic pentameter style. And so it could even be falling into this supernatural meter. So if she went even further, she'd become a witch. Finally, without caring for whether they live or die, her malicious plotting and staging of these events reflect this liminal state between the supernatural and the earthly as characterized by the play. And for this contention between death and nature that's described here represents this idea of death being these like hellish witches and the human action of the play. However, interestingly, in making Lady Macbeth seem witch-like here, just soon after, you must indeed accept that she is human. For Shakespeare insists this when she declares, "Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it." So, though she wants to complete his action, she's actually put off by the fact that Duncan appears like her father, and needs Macbeth to complete it like the witches do. So this image of Lady Macbeth's father makes her all the more tangible, corporal, and therefore human. Rather than peering out of thin air, she has these natural origins. And so witches, and this idea of witches, becomes all the more physical. And this kind of brings out the idea we discussed in lecture, in which throughout the time at the beginning of medical discussion, the idea of witches might have been a reflection of mental illness, and therefore, as Lady Macbeth begins to go insane, washing her hands and declaring that she is basically in hell within her mind, it is interesting that as she finishes, Lady Macbeth merges this idea, and a doctor is called for, yet still he prescribes a priest. So in her mind, while she is a physical being, it is the mind that is finally under this witchly spell. And so though the witches in Macbeth may not be physical beings, because they have this supernatural, ethereal power, that is what is the ultimate ultimately feared throughout the play, and probably by James I as well.